Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the last workshop of this year, question mark. And today's workshop is going to be about college affordability, which I'm actually really excited about because this is a little story. I go to a private college. So when I got admitted to my college, I was fighting back and forth with the college financial aid office. So I know a lot more about financial aid than I would say I would like to. But it's a very important topic. And it's also really important to discuss ways and strategies to decrease loans. Welcome, Stephanie. So pay attention and, take notes. This is a really important topic. And hopefully you get to learn some new things as well. So today's agenda, very briefly, we just did our welcome and icebreaker. First, we will go over just kind of like the foundations and basics of paying for college, the different forms of like how you can pay for college, different forms of financial aid, etc. Then apart from that, we will also discuss ways to, outside of financial aid and ways to pay for college, how can you minimize the amount that you have to pay in general? These will include scholarships, FAFSA, and also we will end by talking about how you can approach talking to family about finances, and when you do eventually get your financial aid offers from colleges, how you can approach that, different strategies that you can utilize. Cool. So if you have been to one of my past workshops, you probably know me a little bit already, but I am Angela. I am a core facilitator at Let's Get Ready. I am now a rising junior at Barnard College. I'm studying biochemistry with a women's gender sexuality studies minor. I'm on the pre-dental track. I grew up first gen low income on Staten Island in New York. So also why this topic is so big for me because I am first gen low income. And the little fun fact that I included kind of for the vibe of today's workshop is that my family never set up like a separate college savings account for me. Not in the sense that I don't have like a bank account, but in the sense that my parents didn't set aside money for me to go into college with and pay for college tuition with, which I didn't even know was a thing until I like started applying to college. And people around me had them. So that's not to say that you need it. I'm still here and I'm still going to a college, so without one. But yeah, that just like kind of motivated me to lock in and really like self advocate and like educate myself about the finances, especially going into college and preparing for college. So, enough about me. Today's workshop also has a raffle thing, which if you have been to the other workshops is like we have them pretty often. But today's raffle is again a $10 raffle card. You can win it by doing one of the things on the slide or have the chance of winning it by doing one of these three on the slide. So you can chat in a response or question, you can unmute and do so, and or you can keep your camera on, and that will give you a little ticket into today's raffle. And also, last chance to participate in our grand prize raffle, and you do this by just simply attending. So all of you have already earned your little point towards your point towards our grand prize raffle. And this will be announced after today's workshop because it is the last of this year. Welcome. Cool. So moving forward from that, we will now begin the first topic of today's workshop, which is covering the basics and foundation of paying for college. How can we pay for college? Well, there are different forms of paying for college and different strategies too. Scholarships and grants you might have heard of in the past already. They are essentially free money. You don't have to pay them back. The main difference between scholarships and grants is that scholarships, you have to apply for both of them, but scholarships, can be merit-based, and usually I would say from experience, most scholarships have to do with things like writing an essay and submitting them, versus grants is essentially need-based. You apply for grants through submitting information about your family's financial like status and situation, usually through like tax forms, etc. But both scholarships and grants are free money. So as much as you can get from them, that'd be better because you don't have to pay them back. Loans, on the other hand, you do have to pay back. And there are government loans and private loans. Generally speaking, government loans do have lower interest rates, meaning that over time you have to pay back less than if you were to borrow from a private lender. And last but not least, or one of the most common ways to pay for college and financial aid is work study. And work study is different from scholarships and grants, as in it's not necessarily free because you are working. You are working while you are studying. And you can kind of think of it as like a guaranteed job, but you still have to work for the paycheck. At the end of the day, in simpler terms, it's just a job, and you get paid through paychecks. Cool. So that all being said, the first activity of today's workshop, I was wondering, there's going to be a poll, and the question is going to be, which of the following best describes your goals relating to paying for college? The options are getting as many scholarships as possible, getting a full ride scholarship, taking out no or minimal student loans, and working towards a high-paying or in-demand career so debt can easily be repaid. So you can choose like all that apply for you. And these are just kind of like the most common goals. You can have different goals outside of this, but just for the sake of this poll, we will have these for options. So I'll give you a second for that. So far, no, I want to give it like 30 more seconds. Okay, so far, I am seeing most of you saying to get as many scholarships as possible, which is great. As I mentioned, scholarships and grants are free money. You don't have to pay them back. So getting as much as you can is definitely a great way to, help you afford college and pay for college. Full ride scholarships was also a very popular answer, and that's also great. I think I've mentioned this in past workshops, but if you're looking for full ride scholarships, a good one that pops into mind is the QuestBridge scholarship, which some of you may qualify for. And essentially you apply through QuestBridge, and if you get matched with a college, it is a full ride. So these are all great answers, and I will. Cool. And none of you said the last option, which is working in a high-paying or in-demand career, which I think I was reading that and I was like, also valid, but I also understand why the above might be more appealing for some students. So thank you all so much. Oh no, maybe it was hidden as an option. That's weird. Interesting. We'll keep that in mind for the next few workshops. But cool. Thank you all so much for responding to that and participating. All right, so these are just some statistics in regards to first-gen students versus non-first-gen students, as in like students whose parents went to college. In general, students, like according to statistics, first-gen college students are more likely to take out loans and also tend to owe more money at the end of their degree. And this isn't necessarily to scare you off, A lot of the times loans are very necessary in order to, complete your college goals, go to college in general. But it just goes to show as well how important it is to educate yourselves, and try to beat this statistic of having to pay, having to take out a lot of loans and trying to keep college as cheap as possible. Um, Also, if this like whole thing is very intimidating, that totally makes sense. Like debt in general, so scary, shaking in my boots. Like it's very valid to be scared about this whole topic in general in this workshop. But also I wanted to mention that there are a lot of people who have joined the efforts to cancel student debt, which you can learn more about and support. We will add a link into the chat for that if you wanted to learn more about that. But I just wanted to throw that out there, in case you are interested in joining that effort. Cool. So here are 3 ways and strategies that we've included in this workshop to keep college affordable. These are just the main 3, but I would like to know which strategies or which strategy listed here is the most nerve-wracking or unfamiliar to you. So is there one that you're like, I don't have any experience with that at all. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anyone who knows anything about it. Which one out of these 3 might like trigger that feeling in you? Okay. Ooh, I'm seeing a lot of 3s. Financial aid offer, scholarships. Okay, we're getting all 3. But a lot of you are also saying 3, choosing the best financial aid offer. Okay, for sure. I totally get that because that isn't really something that I was taught in high school, like how to review them. But instead, I feel like that was something that was taught outside of high school through programs like Let's Get Ready. So definitely stick around. And not only will you be able to get support from your coaches through these workshops, um, you just are able to become more literate in those things over time. But it can definitely be intimidating at first, for sure. Cool. All right. So hopefully, um, I know these things can be scary right now, but hopefully this workshop will be able to ease the panic a little bit and help you learn a little bit more about each of these things. Cool. So first off, we will discuss, well, not first off, we just discussed how the different ways that you can pay for college. But although you can, utilize those to be able to afford college, it is also a really good strategy to begin this journey with less of a number to begin with, less of an amount to need to pay off. So we will explore that by discussing how you can build an affordable college list. And again, if you have participated or like come to one of our workshops before, this slide might look really familiar because it's always sprinkled into our workshops, but it just goes to show how useful it is and how many useful links there are on here. So I will briefly go through the points here as well. Again, you might have seen this slide before, but some good ways to make sure your list of colleges that you're applying to remains affordable. You can look at schools with low sticker prices, and this generally means that a school has a low sticker like tuition, full tuition amount. And these are typically schools that are public. They can be community colleges, and there's also links on the slide that you can click into to explore the different ones. You can also look at schools with good financial aid. This includes private schools. So a lot of private schools are actually 100% demonstrated need, which means that it's just code name for like they have pretty decently good financial aid. So that's always a good like little like keyword thing to like look out for in colleges as well. And also, you can also look into schools that give out merit-based scholarships. This is especially for if you feel like your family won't qualify for a lot of need-based scholarships. Merit-based scholarships are great because they are not like dependent on how much your family earns, but instead the different activities that you did in high school, it can be related to like submitting an essay and like, those essay contests. But um yeah, those merit-based scholarships are different from need-based scholarships, and in the sense that it's not reliant on your family's financial status. Also, financial aid does function differently for undocumented students. So schools with low sticker prices and schools that meet 100% of demonstrated need for undocumented students is a really good starting point to explore, and scholarships in general will be very important. There is also a guide that we can put into the chat for you to learn more about a good starting point for exploring affording college for undocumented students. Thank you, Kathleen. Okay. And I also, now that I kind of broke some of those things down, I wanted you to reflect on this question. Of the different types of affordable schools, is there a specific type that you want to add onto your current list or the list that you are currently building? So I will go back to the list and you can look through these and see if there's a specific type of school, such as community colleges, that you would want to look into more and add onto your list. So take a moment for that, and I would like it if some of you could share which of these things you will be adding to your list. So if you didn't realize that 100% demonstrated need schools indicate good financial aid, you might want to look into that. Oh, yes, Josie. Um, by definition, an undocumented student means that and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, they do not have a citizenship. They are not a citizen. Yeah. Yes, tuition-free schools are definitely something that a lot of students don't really hear about because they are more on the rare side, but they definitely do exist, as the slide indicates. So definitely click into that link and look through it. Yes. So a student said that they plan to go to a community college for the first year and then transfer to a different school afterwards. That's actually a very common tactic to lower the tuition or the amount that you have to pay. And it's a really smart tactic as well, because you graduate with like the ending school the school that you end up in. Thank you, Sarah. I'm not sure if UNC Chapel Hill is full rides. I think a lot of I can't give you a definite answer about UNC Chapel Hill because I also didn't apply to that. But you can also definitely it's a pretty quick search on Google if you are interested in looking more into that. Yes, you will be sent these slideshows. Yes. So if you go to a community college, and I'm pretty sure Let's Get Ready has like a guide to transfer out of community college, how all of that works. But sometimes community colleges are partnered with four-year colleges that you can easily transfer into, like it's a more seamless like transition. But to my knowledge, I would say if you do plan to go to a community college first, just be sure to keep up with the counselor and ask them about like the whole ordeal with transferring credits, because it really does differ school to school. So you just want to be more safe than, like risk anything. But yes, all really good questions. And again, please go back to the slide and like click into those different links as well. once you get these slides sent. But great questions. This next section will jump into applying for scholarships and just like the different types of scholarships, how you should approach them, different plans, etc. Thank you, Sarah. All right, so a good timeline to follow is listed on this slide, and you might notice that the timeline actually starts this week, which is only there because the first step is to basically explore the different scholarships. This doesn't mean that like this week you have to apply to 2 scholarships, already, but it's just that as soon as you can get started, the quicker you can get started and, like the earlier on that you plan for scholarships, the better you are setting yourself up for success. So that is why this timeline starts at this week. So you will begin by exploring different colleges, then ideally sometime in August, you will look at the deadlines, the requirements, maybe the eligibility, and just like feel out the different scholarships and prioritize the ones that you actually want to apply to. Then in September and April, you can gather all of your materials that you've been working on throughout the whole time of this timeline and submit your applications. So just spacing it out in this timely manner and giving yourself that ample time to submit these applications, you will be setting yourself up for success. And also note that like a lot of scholarships, like national scholarships, such as the Coca-Cola or the Dell Scholarship, that a lot of people apply to because they typically give out a lot of money. Those national scholarships usually take a lot more work to apply to. There's a lot more prep work that needs to go into them. So these usually are like things like essays, you have to consider, like edit your resume, things like that. So another reason as to why you should start getting like planning these things earlier on. And we also have a spreadsheet that you can refer to that's linked onto this slide. And a really good tip for applying to scholarships is to basically find what makes you unique. And I know that sounds very like cheesy or whatnot, but it's real tip. It's very important, especially in the context of applying to scholarships. Because a lot of the times, especially for like national scholarships that give out a lot of money, like $20,000, for example, it is best to try to look for scholarships that are more narrow in the application pool. So what does this mean? On this slide, it lists an example of a student who is, for example, adopted, they're Native American, they're transgender, they're a girl, things like that. Those qualities will be able to, those are qualities of the student that they can then use to go on and search for scholarships that are more specific. Because again, how many people are adopted? How many people are Native American? The pool just is smaller for those scholarships. And in that way, because there's less people applying, you have a much higher chance of winning the scholarship. So that's the general rule of thumb, and try something to keep in mind, especially when you're trying to win scholarships and get the money. There will also be an activity in this next slide that asks you to start brainstorming what makes you unique. So there will be a link that is put into the chat for you to kind of peruse through and like get ideas from for different things that can make you unique and different qualities that can like help you search for more specific niche scholarships. And you can look through that list to get ideas, but generally what we're looking to do in this activity is trying to go through, for example, your interests, what talents you have, your different life experiences, what makes you you, and what can you then use to go look for scholarships and more specific niche scholarships. So ideally make a list of 5 to 10 things that make you unique and like the different qualities that make you unique. Thank you, Adeline, for putting in the link. You can definitely scroll through that if you need some ideas. But guys, this is very like broad, I think is the word. Like it can be like there are a lot of different options as to like what kind of qualities you can have. And these are just like ideas that you can look into on the slide. But yeah, I'll give you all a few minutes for that. And um, oh, okay. Sarah also put in the link. So use Sarah's link. Cool. And feel free to ask any questions. I would also love if you like after you brainstorm, if some of you guys can share what the qualities are that you put down. Maybe it could give someone else like an idea. So help each other out. Cool. And also, this isn't the only time that you can work on this activity. I think it's a good time to like get this idea seated in your brain that like you should think about what makes you unique and like what qualities make you stand out. But you can always continue this activity outside of this workshop, obviously, and continue building on your list. And it'll definitely help you in the long run when it comes down to applying for scholarships. But cool. So I will then move on, but definitely continue to work on this activity at your own time. Okay, so more into scholarships. Let's Get Ready actually has a scholarship guide that is very, very useful. And it is also a guide that I will explore with you all. So hopefully you can see my screen that I'm switching into. Okay, cool. Let me know if you can't see it, but this is what the document, the little Google Doc will look like. So there's this is very dense with information, which is a really good thing because it's all in one place and you get to learn a lot out of this. So take your time, especially outside of this workshop, to look into it at a deeper level, but I will just show you some of the highlights that I wanted to point out. So it kind of just tells you some stuff about scholarships and things like deadlines, how you can plan, where to look. These are websites that are very useful. So our last activity with like the qualities that make you unique, this is where it could come into play. This is a really good place to utilize that activity and your list. So you can click on any of these scholarship search engines and you can like edit and filter the scholarships such that it like suits you and like applies to you. Again, the whole goal of this is to like narrow down the different scholarships there are in the world, which there's a lot. So you can always begin there. And then the document goes into the different types of scholarships. So there are local scholarships, there are state scholarships, and national scholarships. Very briefly, local scholarships are, as the name suggests, local. So that in that sense, the local scholarships are generally easier to get than, let's say, national scholarships because the pool size is decreased based on like your area, if that makes sense. So these scholarships are usually only open to like students within like a neighborhood, a community, etc. And basically all of these, that's what I was trying to say. But local scholarships are typically less money. So the ones that I applied for when I was in high school, they were typically like a few $100s. Some of them were like $1,000. But again, these are typically much more easy to get and earn. So the idea is you can like apply to a bunch, get a bunch, and the amount of money that you like end up with at the end of like earning all of the local scholarships, it really does add up and you can end up with like a very impactful amount of money that you can then put into college. Not saying that like all amounts of scholarships are impactful and can be impactful, but that's typically like the way that you can approach local scholarships. State scholarships are a bit broader, as in it's for the like it's open to the state. Um, you can look through these. So there's like the ones that are open for New Yorkers. Why did I say it like that? New Yorkers, Massachusetts, like people in New Jersey. Click through these. And I also want to kind of focus in on national scholarships. So again, national scholarships open to the nation, and that is a lot of people out, a lot of people. But these scholarships are typically a lot more money. And right off the bat, I can, like off the top of my head, Dell Scholarship and the Coca-Cola Scholarship are both, let's it's $20,000. So obviously that is a lot of money. The Questbridge Scholarship is a full ride scholarship. So these are typically a lot more money, especially relative to like local and state scholarships. But again, they are usually a lot more competitive and typically take a lot more work. I applied to the Dell Scholarship, for instance, and that alone, it had like 2 or 3 rounds, I think. So you like submit some information. I think you like submit some short essays in the first round, and then you get notified if you move on to the second round, and then you submit more information, more essays. So these scholarships are really good to plan ahead of time and to kind of like gauge how much effort and time you will need to put into them in order to like apply for them. Um, and then below are just like more specific scholarships for specific groups. So you can, if you're a first gen student, you can look into these. Again, explore all of these links at your own time. Very helpful tool. And also there's a box for undocumented students and scholarships that are geared towards that specific group. That's not to say that if you are an undocumented student, you can't apply to the other scholarships listed here. You just have to double check the eligibilities and like ensure that they are open to undocumented students. Cool. So that is just a brief overview of the Let's Get Ready scholarship guide that you should also be looking into again at your own time. Okay, so the next scholarship that I wanted to kind of one scholarship that I wanted to deep dive into is the College Board Opportunity Scholarship, which is a really good scholarship. I keep saying that, but it's a really good scholarship because you qualify for like specific scholarships through College Board by doing the things that you already need to be doing in order to prepare to like apply for college, apply for scholarships already. So some examples are like building your college list, practicing for the SAT. So these are individual scholarships that you qualify for by doing things that you probably should be doing anyways. So that's why this is such a good scholarship to be on the lookout for. It's just kind of like knocking out two birds with one stone. And the link is also put into the chat for that. Okay. Someone asked, should I, as a rising senior, start applying for scholarships? Um, yes, I think you should start looking for and exploring different scholarships. The only thing is, I don't know if a lot of these scholarships are yet open. Most scholarships are geared for like high school seniors. So, and Sarah just replied, but definitely start exploring them and preparing for them. So, yes, as Sarah said, there's no like set time to be doing it. I would say as early as possible to like start preparing yourself, explore, and like prepare the documents perhaps or like essays for these scholarships. And another thing is a lot of these scholarships are actually they have very similar, if not the same essay prompts. So you can like look up different like scholarships, look at the essay prompts that they typically use, answer those, and you can always like a lot of the times you can end up reusing those short response essays in different scholarship applications. But really good question. There is no like set deadline for that. It's just always good to get started as soon as possible. General rule of thumb. Okay, so we just talked about the College Board Scholarship. Now we will discuss very briefly the Dell Scholarship. This is a really good scholarship because it is nationals and it is, well, because it's national, it's a lot of money that they offer. It's a $20,000 scholarship. And it if you do win the scholarship, you also get, besides the 20K, you also get a laptop, you get academic financial support, and also counseling services. And just by being a Let's Get Ready student, you are eligible to apply to the Dell Scholarship because you are a Let's Get Ready student. That's like one of the eligibility things that you have to meet. So definitely do apply to this. And there are like on the slide the eligibility things listed, but I am actually a Dell scholar. So I got the scholarship and I kind of briefly talked through like a little bit of the process of that. But I would say this is a really good scholarship. They provide, again, a lot of resources and a lot of support. So definitely explore this. And if you have any questions, also feel free to reach out to me if you wanted to like discuss some of the prompts as well. Uh, website, website for what? The Dell Scholarship? I'm sure Sarah or Adeline, if you could put that into the chat, like the scholarship thing. But you can also just search up like Dell Scholarship, and it's like the first one that usually shows up. Thank you, Sarah. Cool. So next, we will discuss the general things and documents that you typically need in order to apply for scholarships and like the most common documents, basically, what I just said. Um, so what you usually need, a lot of scholarships ask for a student resume and a letter of rec. And adding on to this list, I will also say that a lot of scholarships ask for you to write an essay. But to kind of break it down, a resume sounds very intimidating because it's like, wow, that's so adult. I get that. But there are also a lot of resources and guides online, and I'm sure at your high school as well that offer like tips on how to create a good resume. And also as a high school student, I would say like don't stress too much about if I feel like a lot of students just feel like they never have enough on their resume, but at the end of the day, you're a high school student, so most of the time the resume is just for the people reviewing your application to get a gist of like the idea that you are a well-rounded student, that you are doing things outside of classes, whether that be volunteering, clubs, having like a part-time job. So it doesn't need to be stressful. Like, don't stress yourself out about it, because definitely know a lot of people who get really stressed when it comes to creating a resume. But again, a lot of guides online, and Let's Get Ready is also like obviously here to help you through that process if that is a stressful thing for you. In addition to that, a letter of rec is almost always, at least from my experience, required for scholarships. Um, and you just ask a teacher, a guidance counselor, well, usually it's a teacher that you ask, and you ask them a few, typically like maybe a month in advance, try to give them a bit of time. Don't like put them on the spot and be like, oh, my scholarship application is due like next week. Can you please do this? Give them an ample amount of time to write your letter of rec, and typically teachers are always very willing to do that for their students. So that is the general like breakdown of what a scholarship will usually call for. And with that all being said, I know I've been talking a lot. With all of the things that I have covered, I would like you to start reflecting and also like goal setting towards the goal of applying to scholarships, which is a very big thing. Again, back to the timeline, there's a lot of things that go into it. So I would like you all to kind of think about what you want to get started with. What's one step that you'd like to take this week towards the goal of applying for scholarships? Again, this can be something as simple as just exploring different types of scholarships, going through the guide that we walked through together briefly, and maybe like just educating yourself a bit more about it. It doesn't have to be anything really big, honestly, but that one step, and usually the first step, is always the most difficult one to take. And yeah, so I would like you all to just like take a few minutes, reflect on that, and see if there is like one specific goal that you'd like to reach. And if you would like to share, that would also be great. Someone said research scholarships. Yes. I feel like if I were in your shoes as like a rising senior, that would also be my first step. I think that was the first step that I took during my summer going into senior year as well. So very good first step. Again, I think a lot of scholarships are beginning to like open their applications within like the upcoming months. So it's just good to like keep out an eye for the deadlines, what you'll need, having the documents ready. Cool. So someone is applying to a scholarship that is due in September. That's good that you know the deadline. Very important to like keep in mind, especially in the midst of like starting school again, your class exams. And also starting earlier can like help you plan around better, because you don't want to be submitting or like stressed about submitting scholarship applications when you have to apply for actual college. Like you don't want to be stressed about scholarship and college applications simultaneously. So a student is finalizing a resume. Yes. Go you. I think like when I was writing my resume, the most difficult part was like tweaking it and like making sure that I liked the wording of things. So it definitely is worth the effort for sure. Ooh. Oh, I missed this. Cool. Okay. So I hope you had a chance to kind of reflect on this and also continue to work on this like work on this towards this goal, sorry, towards this goal throughout your own time outside of this workshop? Yes. I wasn't trying to ignore it, but I would refer to Sarah's answer. I like agree with that, but I will also briefly go over that. Not necessarily. If you are applying to a lot of scholarships, I applied to many, and for some of them, I did ask the same teacher. So that's not like completely out of the question. A lot of the times they don't mind to resubmit because it's typically around like the same prompts for them. They just reuse the letters of rec. So it's definitely not out of the question to like ask the same teacher. But I would say like don't try to like be mindful, don't stress them out with like they already have a lot of work. But like also going back to that, like it's not out of the question to ask the same teacher. Hope that answered the question. Okay. And now we will go into break. And if you have more questions, like I know I kind of breezed through that. If you have more questions, feel free to stick around in the end and I will try to answer them at the end as well. But we will take a little break for about 4 to 5 minutes. I will try to, we could come back at around 6:58 p.m. Obviously not a.m. But yes, go get like a drink of water, stretch, take a little break. I know I've been talking a lot, so take a break and we will be back at 6:58. Thank you. We will, without further ado, continue with the rest of our workshop. The next topic will be about introducing how you can talk about finances with your family, which I know can be along with the rest of the things that we've talked about thus far, this can be a very intimidating thing to approach and not really like comfortable for a lot of students. So we will hopefully explore how you can go about this process and work with your family to discuss this. Cool. So certainly you do need to talk about money with your family. This is typically very, very important for when you are applying for scholarships, FAFSA, which is a form of grants. And it's really important for you to be like able to fill out these documents, have tax forms, and usually submitting these tax forms and like submitting how much your family earns will be able to qualify you for like different types of grants and scholarships because a lot of these are need-based. So yes, it's very important to do that. And also, aside from scholarships and grants, it is also important to know how much you can afford and how much your family can afford to spend on college. You can use the amount that your family earns every year, your annual income, and you can put that into something called a net price calculator. And the way you do this, you put in XYZ school name and net calculator into Google, and then they will typically be like the first link that you can click into. You put in the like usually surface level information, such as how much your family earns every year and how big your family is, and that will give you an estimate of how much you will have to pay for a specific school. So those are just some of the reasons why it's very important to discuss finances with your family. And yeah, it's a very big contributor as to like how much aid you will be qualified for. So it's important to like for you to build your college list as well. That being said, I would like to know which emoji you would use to express how you feel about approaching this conversation, how you feel about going to your parents, your guardian, your family, and asking them about the finances and how much they are planning to contribute to your college tuition. So are you feeling scared, confident, nervous? Oh my gosh. Yes. We're getting a variety of different reactions. Yes, Josephine, that one is really funny. The but yes. Oh, we are getting such a wide variety. Again, this is such like all feelings here are very valid, and I think as well, like speaking from my own experiences, I had a lot of friends who were so scared about approaching this conversation. Me personally, my parents have thankfully always been like very transparent when it came to earning money and like being low income. But I also had a lot of friends whose parents were just like, you don't need to know that. Like, why would you need to know that? So everyone's experiences and feelings are going to be different, and whatever you are feeling is very valid. All right. Thank you all so much for sharing. And hopefully, um, yeah, hopefully these strategies might help out, especially if you are one of the students that are more nervous about approaching this conversation about finances. So some strategies that you can utilize is you can share your financial goals with your parents. Sometimes parents just misunderstand a lot of the process that goes into it. Sometimes they don't know that like why you need the finances, why you need to kind of like, I guess, butt into their business about like the finances. So sometimes just being transparent about it, explaining to them how it could help you pay less for college, take out less loans, and just in general, like why you need the information. Sometimes that is what is needed in that conversation for your parents to fully understand what is going on and why you need this information. Um, and also just like scheduling the conversation ahead of time, kind of like maybe timing is a lot like a big factor in a lot of conversations. So not putting them on the spot right away might also be helpful, but also like if you do need more planning and like you still don't know how to approach this conversation, your coach is also always there to help out, along with me if you would like to come to my office hours. We are always here to like help you brainstorm and like think of ways to approach this with your specific circumstances. So yeah, those are just some strategies that you can utilize. But again, it might be different for you, and we are always here for like individualized help as well. Cool. So we're going to jump a little bit into FAFSA. Take a look at this chart and I'll give you like a quick second to look through that. It basically just breaks down like the beginning of approaching FAFSA as to like who you should be consulting with when you are applying for FAFSA. So this is a brief chart. This is a brief chart of like possible scenarios. So you might just ask your parents about it. If your parents are divorced, who like um which parent you should ask, things like that. So take a look through this chart. I personally am not like a FAFSA expert, but there are a lot of different resources online, as well as I think most high schools have a counselor who's very literate with like the FAFSA and how to fill it out, specifics about it. And also, you can just also check out the FAFSA website itself that has like a lot of different scenarios that you can like common answers to common questions that you can explore in the FAFSA website. So the link to that will also be put into the chat to the FAFSA link, FAFSA website, and you can look through that as well. Again, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out. Adeline put the link into that. Thank you. and also a lot of sources online if you do have trouble with it. Cool. So more about the FAFSA, how you can start getting ready for it, and maybe like what you can start doing now in order to save yourself stress later on with the FAFSA. So FAFSA is really important. Some things to know about it. I'm not sure if yes, it's listed on the slide. You have to complete it every single year that you are in college, which I feel like a lot of students don't realize. It's not a one-time and done thing. You have to fill it out every year. That reminds me, did I fill out my CSI? Okay. Anyways, FAFSA, you have to submit every year. And it is on a first come, first serve thing, which might be on the next slide. Yes. But you have to fill it out every year. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This is, again, like I mentioned before, a grant. So the money that you do get from FAFSA, you don't have to pay back. It's just like a gift. You just keep it and you use it for college. And also, if you are not a US citizen, you might or you may or may not be eligible. The link to that, like more info on that, will be put into the chat for you to read through if that applies to you. And also during the meantime, like currently the FAFSA is going through like some changes and policies can be evolving. FAFSA has gone before Congress. So all of that is to say that things can always be changing, especially when it comes to the FAFSA. And that's not to scare you, but just for you to like keep in mind so you can always be on the lookout for updates with FAFSA and just kind of like being in touch with everything that is going on with it. So you can be the most ready that you can possibly be, and the most prepared that you can be. So just stay updated with news, with updates, and try to be like more, I don't know, literate, up to date with everything that is going on is a good rule of thumb. And Adeline also put the link into the chat. Thank you, Adeline. Going back to what I was saying before about the FAFSA, it is on a rolling basis. So not only do you have to apply every year, you should apply as soon as possible every year as well. It typically opens on October 1st. It might differ, this FAFSA deadline. No, it opens on October 1st, but the deadlines might differ depending on the college and state that you are applying to and applying from. So what I generally like to do, I fill it out like the day it opens, as in October 1st, because I find that if I put it off for too long, I eventually forget about it because I have the memory of a goldfish. So typically I like to fill it out either that day or the week of. And the reason why you want to do that is because if you apply later on, you are risking the pool of money that the government has to give out to decrease day by day. So definitely get it in as soon as possible. And this is just not something that you want to procrastinate because money is no joke. Like you should apply and get as much money as you can because it will help in the long run. So how you can get ready for the FAFSA right now, you can create an account on FAFSA, and that includes creating a FSA ID. So you just kind of you go into FAFSA, create the account. They will have like instructions on how to do it and they break it down to you. So just doing this ahead of time will save yourself the stress the day that FAFSA does open. And also your parent / guardian will also have to create an account / FSA ID as well. So if they can get that done like now, that would also save you guys a lot of stress. There is also a list that you can click on this slide, sorry, that lists like the documents that you will need. This includes like tax forms, IDs, etc. So if you can like just put that together, put it on the side, that will be helpful for the future. Your future self will thank you. And just being prepared to set aside that hour or like that hour or two with your parent, your guardian, to fill out the FAFSA is very important because at the end of the day, this 1 hour or 2 hours will likely save you between like 5,000 to 12,000 every year in money, in financial aid. So very important. Definitely do this, and be prepared to sit with your parent for that 1 hour or so. And I know I kind of like ran through this a little bit because like it is like something that you can prepare for now, but it's like not yet. It's in October. But it can be very complicated. It can be very scary and intimidating. And also, I have two older siblings, and I have one that went through the process of like applying to colleges, going through FAFSA. She didn't help me. My older sister didn't help me because she was like, I have to go through it alone without any guidance. So you have to too. So that being said, I went through this process alone. And if you are as well, it can be scary, but let me tell you, if I can do it, you can do it. So it's totally possible, and there are a lot of resources around you, a lot more resources than you might think, such as your counselor, such as for those of you who do have family members who have gone to college, you can ask them. Friends who are like filling it out with you can also be helpful. Just like I FaceTime my friends a lot to like, hey, what is this question even asking? So using your resources, and also Let's Get Ready is here to help you with this, especially your coaches. So reaching out for help is not embarrassing. It is actually really smart, and it prevents you from making silly mistakes. But on the topic of silly mistakes, well, they're not silly, but mistakes that students commonly experience for the FAFSA, there are eh, there are guides and resources online that give you like little tips for filling out the FAFSA. And that is put into the chat, I think. Did it? No. There is a link on this slide. Thank you, Eileen. There's a link on this slide as well that you can click into. It's the College Essay Guys Guide to like common mistakes that students have. Sometimes the FAFSA, the questions on there and the prompts on there can be a little bit like difficult to comprehend and understand. So guides like that are very helpful. And there are also versions of the FAFSA in both English and Spanish if that applies to you. Also, aside from those guides and little like resources online, a good thing to keep in mind is that when you are done filling out for the FAFSA, sometimes FAFSA will email you, and you might be selected for FAFSA verification. So they like select students for this process, for this FAFSA verification. This usually isn't something that like you have to be scared about. It just means that sometimes they ask you for like additional documents to submit. So just on the topic of that, keep checking your emails and like stay up to date with your emails and like kind of build that into your routine of checking your emails. Cool. And also, CSS profile. I don't know, I might have skipped this, but aside from the FAFSA, there is also something called the CSS profile. It depends on the schools that you are applying to and end up going to. But for some schools, they will request for you to fill out, in addition to the FAFSA, the CSS profile. You can just search it up on Google, and it's like the first thing that pops up. But yeah, just be on the lookout for that, and it is school specific. Cool. So to wrap up this workshop, we will discuss reviewing financial aid offers. And this will be kind of like a brief section because this is later on in the line, but it's good to keep in mind right now as well. So when you submit your applications for college, you will get accepted into colleges. And then with your acceptance, typically schools will give you your financial aid award letter. This just means it's like a PDF, a letter of how much money, breaking down how much money the school is giving you, as well as how much money is you would need to pay. These financial aid letters can be a little bit confusing because there's so many like little categories on this PDF file, this letter, that it can be a little bit overwhelming to understand and break down. But again, I keep repeating this, I sound like a broken record, but there are so many resources online. And because it is really confusing and a lot of students are confused about it, there are just like a lot of outlets, like much more outlets online about it to help you understand your financial aid award letter. And in addition to those resources, including Let's Get Ready, you can always reach out. You can also, I would recommend just sitting down with it and with your parents, your family, and just like doing the math together because sometimes they can word it weirdly and students misinterpret it into like, oh, I have to pay less. They think that they have to pay less than they actually need to. And that just has to do with like the weird wording sometimes of the financial aid award letters. So it's always good to have a second or third pair of eyes looking with you. And that's usually like family in this scenario. So I definitely recommend doing that, just sitting down with it with your family and going through your financial aid award letters. And this kind of just talks about what I just spoke about. Utilize the support of Let's Get Ready and your coach. So we are always here to help with that. And this slide just kind of like stresses the idea that you really need to fully understand your award letters for each college that you get into before you commit to one. So this is obviously really important because you want to know how much you have to pay and you want to be able to like consider the pros and cons of each college. This usually includes how much money you need to pay for it. Hence this entire workshop. So before you commit, please, like make sure you understand what the actual number is that you have to pay for these colleges and really read through and fully understand your financial aid award letter. Also, um, also take your time with this. Even if you do like apply early decision to a school, typically you have a lot more time than you think to like consider everything. So don't rush it. Obviously, know what the deadline it is to commit to a school, but usually like you don't have to decide like the week that the acceptance letters and award letters come out. So you have typically a lot more time than you think. Just keep up to date, obviously, with the deadlines and like remember what the deadline is. Make sure you go through everything. Like I cannot stress this enough. Make sure you understand your financial aid award letters. Cool. This again just goes over that Let's Get Ready is here to help you and support you through this entire process. It's really scary, especially like I can empathize a lot as a first generation student. And even though my sister did go to college before me, she was no help, like zero help at all. So I really do, I feel like I went through like the full experience of being a first gen student because of my sister's right. Anyways, it is very stressful. It can be really intimidating, but you have so many resources here, and especially just by being a Let's Get Ready student, you have so much more support than you might think. And we are just so here ready to support you throughout this journey. Also, I will do a plug here. I think, yeah, I'll do a plug here and say that I do have office hours. They, I think, have been shared with you through like text. But feel free to use my Calendly link to set up an office hour and we can discuss literally anything you would like, whether it be about finances, about the Dell Scholarship, scholarships in general, or just whatever you need help and support with, hit me up. Schedule the office hours and I'm so down to help. Yes, thank you, Sarah. And also, Sarah is my program manager, so everything that she's saying, please read through them. They are very helpful, and she also sometimes puts in things that I miss. So, yes, thank you, Sarah. Shout out to you. Cool. So that being said, that kind of just wraps up this workshop. Again, feel free to email me, feel free to reach out through office hours. But now I'll take any questions if you guys do have them. And if not, you are free to go. But I will stick around for a while to answer any questions. But if you are leaving, thank you so much for coming. Um, yes, so to look for scholarships, my instinct right now is to advise you to go back to that Let's Get Ready scholarship guide. I think that's a really good first place to start with it's very plentiful with different links and scholarships that you can explore. And there's also like search engines on there that if there's no like specific scholarship that applies to you on the guide, you can search for them through those external filters, scholarship filters. And Sarah also put that in. Of course, thank you so much for coming.